On this day in Tudor history, the 3rd of September 1553, Edward Courtenay was created Earl of Devon by Queen Mary I. It was the start of a remarkable reversal of fortune for a man who'd spent 15 long years imprisoned in the Tower of London, and whose life would continue to be tangled up in suspicion, conspiracy, and tragedy. I'm historian and author Claire Ridgway, and let me tell you more about this Earl of Devon. Edward Courtenay was born in 1526, the second and only surviving son of Henry Courtenay, Marquess of Exeter, and his wife Gertrude Blunt, Marchioness of Exeter. He was also a great-grandson of King Edward IV, which gave him undeniable royal blood. As a boy, Edward spent some time in the household of Mary Tudor, Dowager Queen of France, Henry VIII's sister. But when she died in 1533, he returned to his family and received private tuition. Then came disaster. In 1538, when Edward was just 12, his father was accused of treason, partly due to his friendship with Catherine of Aragon's supporters and his ties with the Pole family. Edward, along with his parents, was sent to the Tower of London. His father was executed that December. His mother was released after 18 months, but Edward remained a prisoner. For 15 years, he grew up behind bars. He had an allowance of £4 a month and tutors to continue his education, but essentially he was forgotten, a political threat too dangerous to release. Everything changed, though, in 1553. Mary I, daughter of Catherine of Aragon and Edward's old childhood patron, came to the throne. She ordered Edward's release on her entry into London that August. Just a month later, on the 3rd of September, she made him Earl of Devon, and later that month she knighted him as a Knight of the Bath. Mary even restored much of his inheritance, and there was even talk of him being made Duke of York. Edward's rehabilitation was greeted with real excitement. Reginald Pole called him the flower of English nobility. Londoners cheered him, and at Mary's coronation on the 1st of October, he bore the sword of state. To some, he was the perfect match for the new queen, a way for her to avoid a foreign husband. Even Stephen Gardiner, Mary's Lord Chancellor, had hopes that Edward might be her choice. But Mary had no interest in marrying Edward. She'd already set her sights on Philip of Spain. As talk of the Spanish match grew, Edward's name became entangled in conspiracies. By early 1554, rebels such as Sir Thomas Wyatt and Sir Peter Carew were plotting to depose Mary, place Elizabeth on the throne, and marry Elizabeth to Edward Courtenay. Was Edward involved? Well, the evidence is murky. He certainly had contacts with the rebels, even sending messages through intermediaries. But his exact role remains unclear. What is certain is that when Wyatt's rebellion failed, Edward was implicated. He was thrown back into the Tower in February 1554. On the day of Wyatt's execution, the 11th of April, the two men exchanged words. Wyatt is said to have begged Edward's forgiveness for naming him in the plot, and on the scaffold he publicly cleared both Elizabeth and Courtenay. Even so, Edward Courtenay was moved to Fotheringay Castle and kept under close watch until 1555. Mary's government decided the safest thing was to send him abroad. He travelled to Brussels, then on to Venice and Padua, where he enrolled at the university. But again, trouble followed him. He became linked to Sir Henry Dudley's plot to overthrow Mary and replace her with Elizabeth and himself. Foreign rulers, including the Duke of Ferrara and even the French King Henry II, tried to persuade him to join their cause. And at one point, an assassination plot was hatched against him by Philip of Spain's advisors. Before any of these schemes could come to fruition, however, Edward died suddenly at Padua on the 18th of September 1556, aged just 30. Officially, it was a fever caught while out hawking, but given the assassination rumours, whispers quickly spread that he'd been poisoned. He was buried in the Basilica of St. Anthony in Padua. So, Edward Courtenay's life was one of extraordinary contrasts. Born into royal blood, imprisoned through much of his youth, restored to dazzling favour, then undone by conspiracies and suspicion. He never quite found his place in the turbulent politics of Tudor England, and perhaps, as one historian said, he was simply born to spend his life in prison. So on this day in 1553, Edward Courtenay became Earl of Devon, but his story is one of promise that turned into tragedy. What do you think? Could Edward Courtenay ever have made a successful husband for Mary or even Elizabeth? Do let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring these lesser-known Tudor lives, please do give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and consider joining as a member for even more Tudor goodies. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.